whether you shoot it or not, that shot needs to go up. Now, what has to happen after that?
Got something now.
Yeah, what has to happen after that? Then your guys down there rebounding have an opportunity to get an offensive rebound and possibly get an easy layup or get to the free throw line. Yep. But that only works if you take the shot.
Yeah, you got to take that shot.
If you don't take the shot,
yeah, it has to be.
Yeah, it cuts into the fabric of the time frame of that play.
Yep.
You know, and everybody know the play. Listen, the play is going to go. There's going to be movement and rotations on the play. It's going to be about 3 passes in that one play.
Right.
The question is, if the ball ends up in Ben Simmons' hand, which normally it does in those 3 passes, because he is a facilitator. Question is, when it gets in your hand and it's 11 seconds on the clock and your defender slides off you, what are you going to do?
Right.
And when he's working out, he needs to work out with that clock saying, here's what normally happens. Here's the shot I'm going to take. It ain't just him coming out shooting 300 jump shots.
Right.
Who cares about that? That's not situational basketball. He needs to be focusing on situational basketball shots. Those shots that are going to come to you in this game. And what does your body feel like when you're taking these shots? If you're not comfortable taking them at practice, you damn sure ain't going to take them during the game.
Not at all.
It takes a cat that don't give a damn to shoot shots like that he don't even take in practice. You know what I mean? And I don't see him having that type of confidence in terms of shooting. He doesn't have that confidence. But I wouldn't trade him just for the simple fact that this coach understands what his abilities are for this particular team. He's a defender. He's a facilitator. All right, well let's use what we have in him and try to upend some of the stuff that he's doing offensively and try to get that in rotation. That's all we need from this dude. That's all we really need. But we have to really truly be serious about the fact that when we look at this team, is this team a championship team as it is? Can this team in a 7-game series get it done? What are the positives of this team? What are the negatives on this team? Because we know Joel Embiid's not in that game.
Right.
We got problems.
We struggle. Yeah, we struggle.
We got a problem. We do better when we're a good team rebounding team in a game. We normally win about 80% of our games when collectively Ben Simmons got double-digit rebounds. Joel Embiid got double-digit rebounds.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? You got over 3 guys that got double-digit rebounds. We normally can win those games because those are added possessions for our guys that get more shots. And that's what the game comes down to. Y'all got, like, the one thing we always say, when you watch the game, you can't, from a fan's perspective, you can't just say, shoot the shot.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's the reason why a certain play is ran. Doc Rivers was not a scorer. No. He was a defender and a facilitator. So it makes sense why he understands what he's getting out of Ben Simmons.
Right.
Because Doc wasn't no scorer like that.
Right.
But he did know how to get guys involved. And he knows what his deficiencies was. So he can teach that same thing to those players, man.
And one of the other differences was or is the simple fact that Ben Simmons is bigger.
They cut it out. I don't think
he knows.
Now.
He knows. He knows how to dominate. Like, you can go on a limb, stretch a little bit, and say he's a walking triple-double.
Yes.
And once he gets that in his mind and understands that, things will be 10 times better.
It'll come easy.
Because it's very easy for him to go coast to coast, go downhill. When he goes downhill, he's almost unstoppable. And I say almost because he has moments where I feel like at 6'11", you should be going and dunking and not going and try to finesse and lay the ball up.
Yeah. Well, that's that he don't have that in him.
Hence the other game with the guy Tyler Johnson, where he got the break and Tyler caught him and he tried to finger roll it. and then he came back again and he dunked it. So he clicked it. He knows it. Yeah. He's got to be more consistent with it, I think. And again, like you mentioned, Baldy, Doc understands what he's getting from him. And he also mentioned in quite a few press conferences, he said, I'm leaving the offensive side and the facilitating side to Sam Cassell. Mm-hmm. And he said Sam Cassell gets on Ben every turnover.
And he was the mid-range killer.
Every turnover.
Sam Cassell was a mid-range killer.
I think it will come. Unfortunately, the NBA being back in their own stadiums has caught a little bit of this coronavirus thing. And just touching, like, the Lakers game was a huge game, or it should have been a huge game for us. The Portland game should have been a win. I think we just looked past looked past Portland and we're looking forward to Brooklyn. And then, of course, a lot of the bandwagoners are going to say, well, in that Brooklyn game, they only had James Harden. Kyrie didn't play, and KD didn't play. In reality, it's not our issue. We had games when Joel didn't play, and we lost all 4 of them.
Mm-hmm. And I'm glad you said that.
So it's not our issue.
Mm-hmm.
It's an issue, but it's not our issue. And like we said about football, you have to perform. You guys are there for a reason. Like, you look at that Brooklyn roster, and again, I say they don't scare me. Shout out to my guy, Sean Henderson. He might be tuned in, he might not be, but me and him talk all the time.
Big Sean.
And I mentioned to him in some conversation, some dialogue, that they don't scare me. Mm-hmm. And the reason I say they don't scare me is the simple fact that they have a big 3. But because of them acquiring James Harden and the cost it took for them to acquire James Harden, the bulk of their bench is gone.
It's gone.
Just trade it, and then you got one that's on injury that would have probably been a starter. Dinwiddie would have probably been a starter this year if he didn't get injured. But you look beyond that big 3, there's not much there. As opposed to the Sixers, and I'm not saying they're head and shoulders above, but we have players on our roster where we know in moments we can get some points from. Mm-hmm. It's just not enough right now to completely get over the hump and win the championship. But we do have some guys, i.e. Shake Milton, i.e. right now, Furkan Korkmaz is playing a little bit better. And then, like Baldy mentioned a little while ago, the young kid, Mr. Maxey, can come in and do some things.
Right.
So we have some pieces. We just missing that final barbecue sauce swipe. And it's like that chicken is done, but you just need that extra so you can start licking your fingers. You know, you can lick your chops once you get that extra.
And as you know what it is too, that it's the same way we're saying how, you know, when we talk about whether or not this team is a contender or in contention, I'm not scared of a lot of teams either.
Right.
What scares me is our inconsistency. Mm-hmm. Because decision making during certain particular parts of the game, it's just like, yo, man, like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Like, literally, when we played that Lakers game, and we get down to about a minute 20-something, and we up, I think we was up 6.
Yeah, Frank, you saying play ball. Y'all, we beat y'all.
Yeah. And
you're going to go ahead and say you only beat us by 1. Yeah, I think we contenders, but, you know, as far as I remember, the coach always told me, when you look at the scoreboard, when the time clock gets double zeros, triple zeros,
if I got more points,
I only need 1 more point, and I get a win.
And that's all. But, you know, it's like, I watched that game and coming down to those possessions. Mm-hmm. Like, I know Kirk Miles, it was 2-3 plays in a row, he came down, bang, 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 okay, you hot. Mm-hmm. Now's not the time to check the heat check.
No, it's not.
Now it's 45 seconds. Let's run about 25 off. Let's run it off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Frank, I know. I was just messing with you. I know we balling. I was just messing with you. That's all, Frank.
He came down and jacked it.
Yeah.
Which gave them an opportunity to get a couple buckets and cut the lead. And you know what I mean? When it should be,
now,
they got that.
I can say the difference in that Lakers game with this team right now and this current coaching staff is the fact that the coaching staff understood what was going on and what could possibly have been the situation, and it came out. And if you remember, Joel was slightly a decoy.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, like I mentioned with the mind frame and the awareness of the coaching staff, throughout the game, the Lakers had been switching on just about everything.
Right.
And they saw the lineup that was out on the court, and Doc Rivers immediately knew that if Tobias got the ball in that pick and roll situation with the matchup that he wanted, he would draw, what's his name? The guard, the white guy. I can't remember his name right now.
I can't
remember his name right now. But anyway.
Ball spot. I got you.
But anyway, he knew that the Sixers would be at an advantage, and at that particular point, that Tobias Harris could dribble into his shot and get that shot. And then in turn, during that end game little talk with Tobias Harris, he pretty much summed it up and said the same things, where he said, I knew I could dribble to get my shot. I was on a small defender, and I took that shot. I take that shot, practice that shot every day.
And I think the Lakers were willing to live with him taking that shot.
Yeah.
They just didn't want Ben Simmons.
They didn't want Ben Simmons to get it. They didn't want Joel to get it.
Defensive strategy.
Right.
I'm going to take the best guy away from the ball, but I'd rather have him get it.
Mm-hmm.
I can live with him taking that 50-50 shot than opposed
Right.
to the big man, because the big man could draw the foul.
Right.
And he's a very good free throw shooter. So I get it. You know what I mean? And those are shots you want to buy. Those are confidence building shots.
Yeah.
So I can live with that. And he's been playing far more confidently, with more confidence than he did last year.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Those are the shots. Those are the ones that we definitely need Ben to be taken. And again, like you said, with the Korkmaz thing, that shot there,
it's just a bad shot.
And like I said, it's a month and a half into the season. They said it's a third of the way through the season. And again,
I can live with him taking that shot now.
Right now,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say okay. I can live with him again. I agree, boy. I can live with him taking that shot right now. But later on down the line, I'm sure that this new coaching staff will let him know that's not what we want. Mm-hmm. We've got to run some clock. We've got to do this. We've got to do that. So,
and he did.
Yeah.
He talked about it after the game too. He said, "Listen,
Absolutely.
I can live with certain shots." He said, "But the shot that was taken, that's not a shot we could take against a team like the Lakers,
right?
Especially going down the stretch."
Absolutely.
He said, "So as a young team, that's a learning curve. That's something we'll get better at. I know this is what this team can get better at." And you go, but I honestly believe that the Lakers are truly a little nervous in terms of a matchup with us, having our young fellas come in and being able to turn it up on their second team.
Absolutely.
And that's a big plus for us.
It goes a long way for the comments that LeBron James made after that game. He mentioned that there's going to be a lot of competition, a lot of teams fighting for that number one spot in the East, and he mentioned that the Sixers are going to be one of them. He also mentioned that there's a pretty good team that they got put together over there. And I think a lot of it, again, boils down to that word I used a lot with Brett Brown that wasn't actually used in the regiment and his coaching staff, is the accountability. Because the games now have no fans. And ideally, like Baldy mentions, and I always piggyback, you want to watch these games with the sound off. George, thanks for tuning in. You want to watch these games with the sound off so you can actually see the game. The other factor now is if you have the sound on, you can hear the coaches talking to players during free throws or going into timeouts. And time after time, I hear Doc Rivers, especially against the Nets game, I forget who it was he was talking to, but he was telling somebody, no, this is what I want you to do. This is what you do. And I'm sure at that particular moment, it was not a lot of bench players on the court, so it was definitely a starter or something in there. But that, I think, is also another factor in the difference in the way that this team is playing, because they're hearing it. They're getting it from the coaching staff. And the coaching staff is not having their heads swelled up because they're 17-7 right now. They're the top seed in the East.
Well,
it's not
as players. They've been there.
Yeah,
You know,
right.
and I always say this. You know, we always say the one thing about when you're coaching, there are certain things that a coach can teach you that another coach, if he did it before, can teach you more.
Right.
Sometimes that experience play. Don't get me wrong. Eric Spoelstra got in there. He won some chips. Had probably the best player in the league on his team at the time. But the fact that you had guys on his bench who were players, who could tell you, yo, listen, in this situation, here's what normally happens. But
Right.
you have the ability to do this. Now, I've seen the cat do it this way. What you can do is blah, 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 blah.
Right.
So sometimes I believe that, especially coaching this team, you did not have.
No.
You had some play. Don't get me
Right.
wrong. Monty Williams and all them were on there, but come on, Monty Williams
Right.
is not who a Doc Rivers was.
Right.
Monty Williams was not
Who Sam Cassell
who
was.
Sam Cassell was. Sam Cassell won chips. As a rookie, came in and won chips. So now he
And was
can
a big
talk
part
to
of
these
Houston at that time.
guards. He can show these guards. Listen, y'all speed is 2 times faster than mine, but here's where my shots came in, and I wasn't even faster than y'all. So you're going to get these shots. You're going
Right.
to be able to maneuver in this offense in a way that you probably wouldn't be able to last year.
Right.
And they start to see it. I think that's creating that vision and people understanding that vision plays a part in that.
I also think that another thing that is a plus with the additions of the Danny Green and the Dwight Howard and the Seth Curry are the facts that for Dwight Howard and Danny Green coming off of a championship, in that realm, it's a different pedigree when you win the championship.
It is.
So they understand. I mean, Danny Green has won 3, so he's bringing that with him. Dwight Howard has won 1. But just the veteran leadership with those 2 guys in particular, where I've seen moments where guys kick a foul, somebody may shoot a foul shot, Danny Green's calling everybody into the huddle. Look, yada, 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 whatever he's saying, but it's clicking. Something that was not there in the Brett Brown era. It wasn't there. Also, Dwight Howard, arguably, and I'm just being nice about it, the best backup center that Joel Embiid has had in his entire career.
Right. When I look at this team, and I can try to compare, if you say this team's a championship team, then who would you compare this team to? A championship caliber team. When I look at this team, I compare this team to the Dallas Mavericks on their run. Dirk was the focal point, just like Joel Embiid's the focal point. But then you had all these other guys. And the other guys, like the Sean Marions and, you know what I mean? And
The Jason Kidd, that was the floor general.
Kidd,
and then the Jet, Jason Terry.
You know what I
the
mean?
Jason Terry that created his own shot.
He could create his own shot. And J. Kidd was a facilitator. But
Absolutely.
Sean Marion was a defender who could hit a mid-range jump shot.
Yep.
A la Ben Simmons.
Yep.
Ben Simmons has to be that Sean Marion type of dude.
Frank just brought up another good point, not to cut you off, but also you can add in there the Detroit Pistons.
They are similar.
Similar. Yeah,
They
the
are
Pistons
similar.
were a little bit better still, but
Yeah,
you
they
can
are
see
similar.
the parallels.
And so if I had to liken a team in this era, I would say of championship teams, I would take the Mavs because the Mavs had that sole superstar whose numbers was crazy. Dirk was averaging about 26 and 12 or 26 and 11. That's Joel Embiid's numbers.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The difference was that Dirk's turnaround pulled Dirk back down more than often. He put the knee up, got a closer shot. He was a same percentage free throw shooter who put that pressure on your defense.
Right.
The other dudes, they knew they rolled, and there was a consistent number of points and assists between those 3 to 4 guys.
Yep.
That's all we need.
Yeah.
That's what we need.
We could even parallel just a touch the 2001 Philadelphia 76ers.
They was a little better defensively,
Yeah.
but yeah, they the same.
But
they
you
same.
could kind of see the parallels once again in that. And it's just...
And that's why I said, if you're going to say they're a championship caliber team, well, who do you liken them to?
Right.
Who do you say that they're like? Because they're not like the Lakers team that just won last year.
No.
They damn sure ain't them.
No, they're not.
They got two superstars. Mm-hmm. Who do you liken them to? You liken them to the San Antonio Spurs when they had their run? Absolutely not. They had three guys that end up in the Hall of Fame.
You look at it, and it's more so that Pistons Dallas Mavericks, like you said.
Yeah, because you had this centerpiece, and then around that centerpiece, it's some sturdy buildings.
Yeah, because that 2001 Sixers team made that adjustment at All-Star break.
Right.
Halfway through the season.
And that's how I look, and it's gonna sound crazy, but I think if we can actually make a run and get there, right? And be in contention to get there. Here's where the good luck comes in. Mm-hmm. Here's where the good luck comes in. The good luck may come in that there may be a game or two where the other team's best guy can't play.
Right.
Vice versa. Mm-hmm. But in terms of luck, and I don't want to wish that.
Right.
Because I'd rather somebody compare us to when a team had all these guys.
Absolutely.
But in the climate that we are in right now,
right. Yeah.
It's kind of weird that it could end up being that way.
Yeah. And one of my jokes about of leading up to that Brooklyn Nets game before I found out that Kyrie and KD were not playing, and I had a lot of people laughing about that situation. And what I mentioned was the fact that going back, and this is just talking about the Nets, where they lost to the Cavaliers, gave up 145 points in one game to the Cavaliers, and nobody really was talking about it a lot. And I said, you put the shoe on the other foot. If that had been the Philadelphia 76ers, it would have been talked about from the time they lost up until their next game, if not further. So, again, that's when I say the bandwagon people will argue about that win. An impressive win against the Nets, considering they didn't have those three.
Right.
And they beat us earlier. Mm-hmm. And then we turn around and we beat them after they make the trade, and they still had the one. But if the shoe was on the other foot, like I said, that would have been talked about from the time that game was over up until the next game, possibly up until the next time they played. But it was a key moment for the Sixers because they played the Nets 3 times. Mm-hmm. So now they're split 1-1. And I want to see full strength at the next game, the third game and final game against the Nets. I want to see both teams at full strength because that's where I'll gauge a little bit more of my opinion and my thoughts about how again. But again, I still say they don't scare me.
Not at all.
Because it kind of reminds me of the initial start of these big teams, big threes, or these big teams, these super teams, when LeBron and Chris Bosh first went to Miami. You had Dwayne Wade there, whom Shaq had left, but Dwayne Wade had won a championship. He had won 2. So he was already established, and it was his team. And Dwayne Wade humbled himself to let these 2 guys come in and pretty much take control and take over that team. But I mentioned to people their first year together that I didn't feel like they would win the championship. And they didn't.
They didn't.
And one of them things I mentioned, I said, now you've got 3 guys coming together who were the primary scorers, the primary go-to guys on their respective teams, to now coming to play together. How long will it take for these guys to understand how we gonna do this?
You know what?
It's one basketball.
Harden knows because he's been sacrificing.
Yeah.
Question is, you're 1 and 2 punch guys. They got to figure it out.
And those 2 egos are going to be the toughest ones to get around.
Because they both closers, man.
They both closers.
Absolutely.
And the Sixers are definitely in a really good place right now, if you will. Definitely in a very good place. So again, bottom line, we need to get Ben to shoot the ball. And that's a given because that's part of the game. It's a natural instinct to shoot the ball. But people now, I think, are starting to step away from we got to move him, we got to do this, we got to do that. Because, again, it comes down to a couple things. What is his value right now?
Mm-hmm.
What will teams ask in return?
Right.
Or what will they want to go along with Ben in the trade? And thinking about the effect that it will have from what they've already done with him to removing him from the picture. Like, a lot of people were talking of the Bradley Beal for Ben Simmons, and the first thing I said, okay, then who's your starting point guard?
Yeah, that's the question.
And like I said, I still don't consider Ben an actual point guard per se. I think he's playing the point guard. But you make a move like that, then who becomes your point guard?
That's going to be the question. When you're going to bring something, you're going to pull somebody off that bench,
Right.
and make them that point.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? That's the question. You know, I like Bradley Beal. I think Bradley Beal be a hell of an addition for us. I think that'll be a hell of a 1-2 punch.
Yep.
But that's what we used to. We used to the scorers.
Mm-hmm.
How does that complement? What are we giving up?
Absolutely.
So are we going to give up Ben Simmons? We're going to give up Thibault. We're going to give up 2 picks, 2 guaranteed picks in an unprotected. We giving up 5 guys to get 1 guy who's not a superstar. He's an all-star, star in the league. But come on, that's fuzzy math. That don't make sense.
Right.
Because what we just did was give up anything that's coming in the future.
Yep.
We gave up a guaranteed defender and a facilitator, and we gave up another defender to get an offensive guy.
Yep.
So you just got to look at, the ins and outs of the chase, because right now we chasing.
Right.
And if we decide to pull that trigger on something like that, that chase becomes
I think it
a
sets us
harder
back
road
some,
to travel now.
I definitely do like the fact that Daryl Morey and Doc Rivers have a decent enough relationship where they respect each other's opinions. And I say that for the reason that I mentioned a little while back, where Daryl Morey had some things talked about, but he presented them to Doc Rivers, and Doc Rivers shut them down and said, no, we can't do that right now. I also feel like you have to give this team an opportunity to fail, if you will, for lack of a better word. You have to give the core of this team right now the opportunity to get to a certain extent in the playoffs, whether that be second round, because I don't think they'll go out in the first round considering where they are right now. Whether they make it to the conference champion finals or not. But I think you have to give them that opportunity to go through that as a unit. Then it becomes more clearer what pieces of the puzzle are missing. Like, you can see it now.
Right.
But I think that run will make a lot of the things more clearer to the coaching staff and the front office staff. And I think the front office right now is also in a good place. Randy Dockery says, what's up, Bob?
Yes, sir. What's up, man?
I think the front office is now in a better place where Elton Brand now has a respected, formidable president of basketball operations, or somebody in that office with him that can coach him along.
Right.
And I'm not saying that the guys he had, but the guys he had before when he was brought in were, in my opinion, somewhat puppets, where whoever was the quote-unquote man or whatever the owners wanted, they just went along with as a unit. I think one of the greatest things that Daryl Morey has done for this team and this organization was immediately coming in and getting rid of that horrible Al Horford contract.
Yeah.
That was one of the best things that he could have done for this organization as a whole. And him doing that just jump-started what we're seeing right now. And again, I still think there's room for improvement. We can get better.
I honestly believe we can, but like you said, I think they gotta be able to see what they got, go through it in a way that you know what you have. You can't do that in the first year, Doc Rivers' first year. You can't do it because that's pretty much taking a cake out the oven before you can test to see if it's even done in the middle. So you know what I mean? Don't take the cake out the oven.
Right.
Leave it in there. Let it bake. Let it get to where it can go in this year. Yeah. And then after that, if you decide that, you know what, I now realize I can't do what I'm trying to do, I can't do this with Ben Simmons here. Or I can't do this with this player. That's when you start shuffling the deck and you start moving cards.
Right.
But you can't move the cards if you don't know
what you got,
what the ladder's going to be.
Right.
You don't know what the ladder's going to be.
Right.
So I say chase it as long as you can for this year. Chase it out. See where it gets you.
Yeah.
And off of that, there is going to be a free agent pool.
Yep.
It's going to be some players that's going to be on a player option. They can opt out. That are pieces that you could interject in there. A guy like Lou Williams, there's going to be that guy out there.
Yep.
Why not? I mean, if that's if you need another guy that you want to groom these young scorers into being like off the bench, understanding what a 6-man role is not a curse. You know what I mean? All those things play a part. But I agree 100% what you said. You gotta see what you got.
Yeah, you gotta see this through so far.
Pulling the trigger, it just don't make sense. Not right now. Not with this new coach you have.
Right.
If that's the case, you should have held Brett Brown.
Should have held him,
and let him pull the trigger.
Yep.
He let the guy go 3 years without shooting a jump shot.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? So
absolutely.
It's just let's see what we got.
Yeah.
With the leadership that we have, let's see where it takes us, and let's see if it's any better than where it was the year before.
Absolutely.
And then make that decision that way.
Yes, sir.
I'm cool with that.
So, with that being said, that concludes this episode of the SportsRap Podcast. I am now going to give you your schedule for NHL and your NBA schedule. We're going to close out with that. NHL, you got the Sabres at the Bruins. The Islanders are at the Rangers. The Hurricanes are facing off against the Blue Jackets. The Canucks and the Maple Leafs. The Oilers and the Senators. Lightning, Predators, Coyotes, Blues. Rounding out Monday night in the NBA. Rockets are at the Hornets. The Wizards are at the Bulls. The Raptors and the Grizzlies. The T-Wolves face off against the Mavs. The Warriors go up against the Spurs. The Cavs versus the Suns. The Bucks versus the Nuggets. The Thunder versus the Lakers. As always, you can catch us right here each and every Monday, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. You know where to find me at SportsRap_D on Instagram and Twitter. And thanks to everybody that tuned in on this Instagram Live. Thanks to everybody that came back. I finally got some things working with the Facebook Live. YouTube, SportsRap TV. Let's see. What else have we got? Facebook, like I said, the group page, SportsRap Podcast. The web page, sportsrapradio.com. And the podcast. This episode will go up probably tomorrow or the next day, so you can catch that if you missed it today. SportsRap Podcast just on iHeart, Google, Apple. Just search SportsRap Podcast. You'll find it. The episodes will be there and on Anchor. And my guy who's with me today, Baldy.
Yes, sir, man.
Let them know where they can find you.
Oh, you can catch me on Aaron Baltimore on Facebook and on Instagram, you Ball75. And the only Bucks, well, 2 Bucks fans I know. My brother Tim, he's been screaming Bucks, Bucks, Bucks the whole time.
Yeah.
So whatever, man. Y'all want to
yeah. Y'all got another one.
Y'all, you Bucks fans. I will give them a little credit. They was rocking out when Wichcombe was the quarterback back in the day. So.
Okay. So they was in the Warren. They was in the Warren Sapp era.
They was before the Warren Sapp.
Oh, okay. So they can get some credit for that.
So they was back when there was a black quarterback there.
Right.
So I'll give them that. They got 2. Now I'm gonna let them live on that.
All right, folks. Thank y'all for tuning in. We will see you all next week. Hopefully, Baldy will be with me next week. Frank has mentioned that he's going to try and get here, so we'll see what happens with that. I'm going to play with this stuff a little bit more so we can get everybody in the shot. We won't have to have any technical difficulties, but stay tuned, folks. You know, tune in, Heat 100 Radio. We got some mixes, some other music for you. Be safe on purpose. It's a little chilly out. Be careful. There's some ice and some snow out. And as always, we'll see you next week. Thanks for tuning in.
All right, folks, make sure you get